Welcome to the Learning Reimagined podcast, where we discuss solutions to employee training and development challenges in the Caribbean. We speak with Caribbean professionals who are experts at helping people in Caribbean organizations excel. And we want to help you, our Caribbean audience, level up your teams, your employees, so that your businesses can succeed. This is the very first episode, guys, of this podcast series, and I have with me Rochelle James. Rochelle is a people professional. That's what she said she is. She's not an HR professional, she's a people professional, and she has worked in various organizations spanning the full breadth of the Caribbean. So, say enough place to work, basically. And having worked in HR for over 8 years, she has used her extensive network and experience to create the Caribbean Society of Human Resource Professionals.
CSHRP for short.
Okay, bless the Lord. An organization that connects people professionals and people leaders across the Caribbean. So I think that's amazing, and I am so honored to have Rochelle here with me today. It's great to have you, Rochelle.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm really excited, and I feel a little bossy because I'm the first guest.
Yes, you're the first guest, and we would love to hear your insights about these very important issues that are facing Caribbean organizations. So I'm looking forward to this being a very, very fruitful discussion.
Yes.
So before we dive in, I always like to get to know guests a little bit more. So tell us a little bit more about the Caribbean Society of Human Resource Professionals and why you started it.
So I love to share the story that the Caribbean Society for Human Resource Professionals, CSHRP, was started in the most Caribbean way possible.
Okay.
Over glasses of coconut water.
Which is right.
So while attending the HR Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago conference back in 2018, 2019, the idea for C# was birthed out of this growing need for professionals within our region to connect. There wasn't a strong enough professional body or network of advocacy. And if you look right around the world, every region of the world has their own HR society,
which is
serving them, representing them, and supporting them.
Yeah.
Being a repository of information, being a source of connection. And that's what we wanted to do. That's what we've been trying to do, and that's what we will continue to do as an organization.
That sounds amazing. How has it been going so far since
inception? Great. It started with probably about 5 like-minded professionals, and it blossomed into now a network of over 1,000 professionals.
Wow.
Not just in the Caribbean but around the world.
Excellent.
And we're hoping to grow and to expand, and we are taking on new members every day.
Awesome. I'm so happy for you. So proud of you. So let's dive into the meat of the matter for this episode, right?
Yes.
So we're talking about upskilling workforces and developing learning and development cultures within Caribbean organizations. So the most pertinent question to start with is, how would you define what a learning and development culture is within a Caribbean organization?
So it stems from the organization's strategic focus.
Okay.
And how you plan to develop the business in the long term.
Okay.
All right. So a learning and development culture is about it takes into account not just how you train your staff, but how you keep your staff, how you recruit, what kind of talent you're looking for, and where the organization is going in the long term. So if you have employees within an engineering company,
right,
but most of the training that you're offering is in customer service, are you tooling your staff for the future of the business to come?
Makes sense. So with that said, what are the key ingredients of a successful learning and development culture?
key ingredients. The first one is a continuous learning environment.
Okay.
There also needs to be a space for cross training.
Okay.
Or job shadowing or even mirroring of responsibilities. There also has to be a very strong culture of gamification.
Okay.
If your organization is not on a regular basis doing team building activities, doing game centered learning activities, then there's a big problem, because learning itself can be tedious. There's not any clear way beyond an assessment and actual doing that you can evaluate whether or not someone has transferred the knowledge. And then if the atmosphere is one such that, all right, the only way I can get a promotion is if I have a degree, or the only way I can do better at this job is if I have a checkbox certificate, then that doesn't make much sense, does it?
No.
So you want a culture where it becomes a part of you and within your nature to want to learn something new, to want to grow and develop as a professional, not just for this job, but because you see the big picture of how it impacts the company, and you see the big picture of how it impacts your career as a professional.
Let's dive into that gamification concept a bit more. How does that work within an organization? Explain that a bit more.
All right. So it is simply playing games at work. I'll use this example. I don't know if many persons know the story of Lego Serious Play, but it came out of a study that by some professors in the US that were looking at how to use games and playing and fun to carry out strategic planning and management development, right? Leadership development. And eventually the CEO of Lego saw the value in their research and built out a whole department dedicated to looking at how Legos can be used to do these strategic things.
Really?
Right?
Interesting.
To offer these kinds of training.
Yeah.
And eventually it became this whole product, right? That a lot of organizations use in their strategic planning process.
Okay.
So instead of sitting down and doing your regular SWOT analysis and sitting down in a training session for days and and the regular lunch and the routine stuff,
things we hate.
the process of Lego Serious Play allows persons to visualize actual future stuff that they want to do in the organization, put together, use their hands and make things, play with things to create a story around something that they're hoping to achieve in their role or in the organization. And that's a skill, or that's a technique that can easily be translated to any form of learning that you have. And that is what gamification is. I'll use a bigger example for you. When I worked at JPS, one of the gaps or one of the tasks that my then manager gave me was just starting out in HR, was responsible for health and wellness as a HR officer. And in my portfolio, I needed to create this culture and this buzz around healthy living.
Okay.
Right? And fitness.
Okay.
That was one.
Sounds
Two, I also needed to find a way to get persons more engaged around the organization itself. And because we're operating in little bit of silos, small companies within the company, and persons they were getting the information about the organization and things that were happening, but did they fully understand it? Did they understand where we were going? So we had an activity called the Renewables Wellness Adventure, right? Still learning. You were learning things about other departments, other teams, other roles. In it, you were learning things about fitness and health through riddles and quizzes and activities. You were doing a hike. So all of that was gamified in that whole activity, and you were hiking through bushes and rivers, and you were building stuff, and you were playing, and you were having fun with your coworkers. And at the end of that experience, you still had something tangible that you left with in terms of knowledge. Right?
Got it.
And that is exactly what gamification is. And it can be applied in so many spaces. And by infusing that, it makes this whole concept of continuous learning easy to translate, because you don't just see work as work, but you see it as a opportunity to have fun.
So is it that with the gamification, then you add like points to different activities and then like cumulatively?
Yes.
Okay.
If you've ever there's some conferences that are held on platforms where when you read particular material, then you get little points. So there's a leaderboard or a scoreboard.
Cool.
It can be translated into the organization. So you've participated in this online course or this online training.
Right.
And when you actually utilize the skill, you get a point. Or when you read this article, you get a point. Or when you share this content, you get a point.
Excellent.
However you want to add scores and your own system of measure to these activities. That is one way of gamifying learning.
Excellent. There was a study that I was reading yesterday, I think it was from Gallup, and it talks about strength development in organizations, right? And there's a quote that I want to read that was in the study. It said, to improve performance, develop your people based on their strengths, not their weaknesses. Developing people's strengths makes them more confident, productive, and self-aware. How can we incorporate strength development into a learn and development culture?
All right, so just for clarity, a strength versus a skill, and I want to touch on it a little bit. So employees might have skill gaps.
Right.
Not all skill gaps are pertinent to a particular role, right?
Interesting.
What you need in order to execute your role are key competencies, which is basically just a skill in action. That is what your competency is, right? Now, in strengthening your competencies, that is an ongoing process, and you're going to strengthen it through doing.
Right.
Just like an athlete is going to strengthen their or improve upon their time is through strength training.
Right.
Cool?
Yeah.
All right. So building same knowledge, same principle. An athlete is able to do it on their own, but they're only effective at it with who? With a coach.
Right.
And that is all
Makes
it boils down to. The most effective way to do that is with a tutor or a coach, somebody who is actively focused on, okay, so where am I on this particular level? How do I get to the next level? One competency that is important in the workspace, and there you can go to training after training on it, and if the training isn't conducted effectively, and if it isn't ongoing to build your strength in it, you'll fail. Emotional intelligence.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, man. Big one. And almost every organization has sent somebody on emotional intelligence training, or if you have an HR department, they have dealt with some disciplinary issue that the root cause is lack of emotional intelligence. So that is one competence that definitely would need strength training on an ongoing basis. Why? Generations change in an organization.
Yeah.
The dynamics of teams change.
Yeah.
So just when you've gotten comfortable with the equilibrium on this team, John leaves the team. Shifts the energy completely. Probably John was the comedian of the group that kept everybody
together.
and kept everybody, because the high pressure work environment, we have stressful situations on our team. So what do we have to do? Create the strength and emotional intelligence on this team to manage those shifts and changes within the organization, within our team, within the economy.
Makes a lot of sense. So this question that I'm going to know, I know a lot of Caribbean people feel this one. So a lot of Caribbean people have small teams. Caribbean businesses have small teams. And these small teams have people who have multiple responsibilities, juggling so many things, wearing so many hats. How can someone in this organization develop a learn and development culture when people are so stretched and worn thin and the team is so small? How can they do it?
Boy, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the gamification. So if people feel like there's always time for fun. Making time and setting aside a budget for team building within your organization and reward and recognition is what is going to allow you to survive as a business, especially when you're small. Those opportunities to come away from the work are critical, because if you don't have them, you're going to sink and you're going to start losing people because of burnout.
Yeah.
Because if one thing that we've learned from COVID is that people will leave an organization not just because of money. Persons know how to survive at home.
Yes.
With or without an income.
Yep.
And they're not afraid to do it again.
Right.
Right? So you have to create that working environment that is comfortable, that is fun, that is pleasant. And you have to make time for stress-free interaction with your coworkers.
Yes.
Good? Now, in terms of making time for the training, going back to the gamification, if there's a leaderboard, if there's a scoring system, if there's a thermometer in the office, cardboard cutout, and or it's there's a big up board in the organization commending persons who have taken the time not to pull away from work for 3, 4, 5 days for a long training seminar or course, but the training requirement or the learning requirement is that you need to take X number of hours per month to dedicate to learning something or learning something new.
Right.
And then to ensuring that there are redundancies in the business. Redundancy in this case don't mean sending anybody home. But when someone goes on vacation, their work isn't waiting for them when they get back. Use it as an opportunity for somebody else to learn. So build into your budget acting allowances or room for compensation, or whether it is in cash or in kind, or however you can design it in your organization, so that when somebody goes off on vacation, there is somebody to act, and that is another learning opportunity.
So one of the things that I've heard you mention is the fact that training in Caribbean organizations tends to be like this long 4-day, 5-day retreat or some type of long session, something like that, that requires a lot of investment of time and mental energy from people. So what I wanted to ask, with this whole gamification that you mentioned a while ago, and with the fact that people have short attention spans, how can online learning help kind of soften the blow and fill the gap kind of to work with both gamification and making learning easier for people in Caribbean teams?
So if you have a very good learning and development plan from the start of the year, so you recognize that everybody, for example, everybody in the organization needs to go through emotional intelligence training and customer service training.
Right.
Every company needs that. All right, good. So this is how many hours of training are required for every employee. So every employee needs to do at the end of the year 4 hours of customer service training, 4 hours of emotional intelligence training.
Right.
All right. If you have a learning management system, an online tool, or online platform, one that is conscious of culture. When I say that, what I mean is there are a number of tools you can use. You hear about Coursera, you hear about Udemy. Yeah, but are they culturally specific? Culturally specific does not mean, oh, it's myopic and it is narrowed to the Caribbean. No, it takes into account the customers your employees will face and interact with. It takes into account how we as Caribbean people interact with a global world. Right? And that's exactly what I mean. So when persons know upfront at the beginning of the year that this is their training requirement for the year,
Right.
go onto their platform at whatever time, watch their videos, and then get back to work. Now, watching the videos and getting back to work don't mean I'm sitting there working in a spreadsheet and listening to... No,
not passive.
No. Active learning. And that is
Right.
where the difference comes. When you have a learning platform, if it's not instructor driven face to face, if you have an online platform or online system or network where the student or employee, in this case the student, is actually able to manage their learning at their own pace,
Right.
participate meaningfully, and also what I would recommend is that the learning outcomes, not just of the program but the intended outcomes in terms of business impact, be made clear. So when you're doing your performance, your goal setting, once you've done the goal setting, just like how there is a measure for success in the goal setting process. There should be a measure for success when it comes to the training. So when you're doing your end of year appraisal, you can evaluate the effectiveness of either the training or the employees / students learning at the end of that period.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And when we look on the flip side at the larger Caribbean organizations, so like a Grace Kennedy or those big organizations where there are so many employees, HR teams have so many people to manage.
Yes.
How do they deal with that challenge of managing so many people?
And that is coming back to the point of the learning management system. Perfect. Because when you have a platform or a tool that can share with you, okay, how many hours of training these employees completed, who was supposed, so you have your learning and development plan for the year. So John, Mary, and Susan, or everybody in the finance department was supposed to complete these trainings. Did they complete? And there is a tracker going. It really helps and it makes a difference. And again, building that reward and recognition, that gamification into it makes it a lot more fun.
Right.
It's easier. A lot of things, if they're automated and user driven, it makes the work of HR less operational and more strategic. There are some operational tasks that come with the people process, the employee life cycle. However, the more things that we can automate as HR, the more we can get back to the business of taking care of employees and supporting the company.
Definitely. I totally agree. And there is another quote. I like these quotes, these Gallup studies. You know, I read all these things all the time. But there's this quote from a Gallup study that says that employees who strongly agree they have a clear plan for their professional development are 3.5 times more likely to strongly agree that their onboarding process was exceptional. So from that, my question to you is, what tips would you give for helping Caribbean HR leaders incorporate learning and development into the onboarding process? So from that very early stage where you're bringing in a new employee, how can they bring it in at that stage and help employees achieve their professional goals?
All right. So if your onboarding process is just an orientation session that is held, quarterly or once a month, then you probably need to revamp it so it's more of an induction process. What's the difference? You ever been a part of a service club?
Like a Rotaract?
Yeah, man. They don't have orientation. They have induction.
Yeah.
They have induction. They're properly indoctrinating you. If you're in Jamaica, it would be, you can liken it to what happens when you go to a KC or a JC.
Indoctrination,
you are properly indoctrinated. Yes, you have your induction. What does that mean in an organization?
Right.
So immersion into the culture of the organization, not the desired or perceived culture, but the actual culture and the one that you want to reinforce. That's part one. Part two, ensuring that the employee gets a full understanding of all sides of the business. So they are not just another employee, but they are partners in the business, and ensuring that when they step in, even though they're going to be working in accounts, they understand full well what's happening in IT. They understand what is happening at the very strategic and senior level. They understand the strategic priorities of the organization for that year. If there's a 5-year plan, a 3-year plan, they know what that plan is and how their role fits in and contributes to the bottom line. A lot of the challenges we face sometimes in organizations come from, well, I don't see how this training would benefit the company. And my role is really a checkbox role. So I'm not contributing to the bottom line, but we all contribute to the bottom line.
Every one of us.
And even if your department is a revenue center or a cost center, it has a business impact. And ensuring that is built out and very clear at the start. And when your employees are transition from their induction, they're preaching the gospel. So if there's a challenge on the front line with employee to customer now.
Right.
Well, and I saw them tell me, for those who are not Jamaican, that's what they told me to say. But it is more of, well, this is the position of the business because, and they can easily, clearly, and confidently communicate that because it's not an instruction they've gotten,
right?
But it's based on their understanding and knowledge of the business itself.
Definitely. And going to the point of professional development for each employee as well. How do we make learning and development something that focuses on each employee's professional development?
Going back to the performance appraisals, so looking at where the employee wants to take themselves, where they're planning to be in the organization. You're not going to find persons staying with the company, especially now generations X, Y, and Z, which includes the millennials, which includes Gen Z. Once there isn't a clear path or plan for their development, they're not going to stay.
Nope.
So ensuring that training is tied to their development, is tied to the focus of the company, the direction it is taking, what the future trends are, and ensuring that it is new and fresh. New and fresh doesn't always mean the nice, shiny fad of the day, right? It also means things that are current. So if your organization is still using computers that take forever to boot up and their desktops, then you should be looking at laptops,
right?
And what comes with laptops, helping persons who are not so au fait with the technology, depending on the generations that you have in the organization, to get comfortable with it. And it can mean formal or informal training, and those are like loose examples, but giving employees an opportunity to learn and grow in their chosen field and outside of their chosen field.
Ooh, that's an important point. Growing outside of their chosen field. Dive into that a little bit for me.
So what that means is, going back to the example of accounting, if the core of your business is focused on B2B, business to business sales and interaction, your finance person needs to understand a little bit of sales, right? Or if the core of your business is about marketing and digital marketing, your finance person needs to understand a little bit of digital marketing so that they can better support the business. Another example is HR. There are some spaces where anyone who is working in the HR department is reserved to HR related activities. So when conducting an interview for a new sales rep, they don't really understand the products and services that the company offers. So it is the hiring manager's responsibility now to effectively conduct that interview, and HR is just there as a support leg, but you're not really supporting. And if you're even a support leg, the leg is weak,
very weak,
because you don't have relevant knowledge to offer any kind of insight more than on the person's personality, or like what we like to say, organizational fit. It's more than organizational fit, you know. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. So your new employees in HR, once they come into HR, they need to be spending time learning everybody else's job. They need to spend some time shadowing other employees for a little bit, or doing online courses so they understand the line of business that you're in, so that they can better support the organization that they're supposed to be supporting. If not, then all they need to be doing is filing.
Wow, that's a strong point. Yeah, that's the reality. Yeah, if you're not offering the right support, then what are you there for?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's get into the discussion about upskilling and wrap up. So there's this research by the Society for Human Resource Management that shows that 72% of organizations lack qualified talent. How can Caribbean organizations effectively upskill their teams to close the skill gaps?
So that study is based on North America.
That's true.
In the Caribbean, it's the reverse.
Oh, really?
So most organizations, because in the Caribbean, we love to go to school and we love certificates and we
That's
love
true.
qualifications.
Yes.
We love credentials.
Yes.
And that's why when you go on LinkedIn and you search for people in the Caribbean, they're going to have a full alphabet behind their
The
name,
yeah.
right? So in our case, it is a seller's market, meaning you can find the talent, and I'm sure a lot of my colleagues will identify with this because it's something we've discussed in C#. You find the talents, you find the candidates, but what is happening to us now is you're competing with other organizations to see who has the better offer.
Wow.
Because
yeah.
persons are very qualified, very skilled, but they're not waiting around either. And they're not just waiting for the right salary. So if you're thinking that you can pay them more and that will be enough, that's not enough.
Wow.
The benefits, the opportunity for growth and development, the training opportunities that exist within your organization are what make an attractive package to attract the right kind of talent.
Excellent. That says a lot. I hope everybody heard that. It's a very, very important point about closing those. Because I was actually thinking about it. I was saying, like, a lot of us have the degrees and the qualifications. So it's not really an issue of upskilling so much as it is about, creating the right environment to attract.
And then what you're going to find in the Caribbean too is that we have an apprenticeship culture, right? So you might have persons who don't necessarily have qualifications, and which might be true of our parents. How many of us, our parents probably just have a teaching degree,
Right.
but when you grew up and knew them, my mommy never, for argument's sake, my mommy or my daddy wasn't teaching. My mommy or my daddy was managing or leading in these different organizations. Why? Because that was what they needed at the time to get their foot in the door, but they were doing all these other things at the same time. So they learned within the organization, and that culture is still true for us, especially even now of Gen Z, because a lot of Gen Zers now, a lot of the younger persons coming into organizations, they just have a degree, but their talents far outweigh. Far outweigh, and they have degree. They have the degree, but they have certifications too, or they have experience and exposure to stuff that they've been doing since high school, but they've mastered by the time they get out of college, get out of university. So because of this apprenticeship culture or learning culture, it is easy for you to say, all right, I'm going to hire this person to be a clerk or a receptionist, and at the same time I'm training them to be a sales rep, or I'm training them to be a business development representative, or I'm training them to be a developer, or I'm training them to be an accountant. So it is easy to give them that training, and while they're training, think about it. How many companies have persons who are accounting clerks who are working, studying, and waiting to go to their ACCA? You got what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the concept is very different from us because there are more avenues. It's so easy to reach out to an institution and get qualified or certified in some way, and we like it.
Yes, we love it.
Yeah, we like it. Just check LinkedIn. We love to post it and we love to share it. In North America, it's not necessarily the case because their interest in education, certification, and qualification is racially driven. So they're gonna have a different dynamic where that is concerned. So you'll find that Caribbean Americans are big on schooling and education. Asian Americans likewise. And when I say Asian, not just talking Chinese or Japanese, I'm talking Indian too. But traditionally, African Americans might not be seen as wanting to be educated. So it might be a little bit more difficult for them to acquire scholarships and stuff. So avenues have been created to make that easier. We don't have the same kind of dynamics here in the region. So
that's true.
Wanting an education and being able to get an education don't have barriers to entry, like filling out a form to have to respond to what is your race. That's not on any form when you go into UE or UTech. you know. So the study is valid and very relevant, and it's just not Caribbean conscious.
So my last question before we wrap up is, how do we treat the reskilling opportunities within Caribbean organizations?
So a simple way of looking at it, reskilling, or you can also call it retooling, right? When think of lawyers. So lawyers are every year, in an ongoing way, lawyers are reskilling themselves through training, attending seminars, conferences, and reading.
Right.
Why? Laws change. And laws, especially in our region, are applied through interpretation. When I say interpretation, a case is presented before the court. Once that case is presented before the court, whatever decision is made is the precedent for the application of that law in future. Good? So that is why they always have to be reskilling and retooling themselves, keeping yourself fresh, keeping the knowledge fresh, and making sure that you know what's happening right now. Same is true for every other profession.
Every single one of them.
Every other profession and every other discipline within your organization. So you should be encouraging it in a meaningful way. So encourage and building it into job descriptions. It is something that happens now even in my own organization, where every interview there's always somebody on our panel who asks the question, how do you retool yourself, how you keep yourself fresh,
right,
how you keep your knowledge current, how you keep on top of new trends. And it is built into every job description. So that should be a requirement that you're building into job descriptions as well, because that no is not an organizational responsibility. It's a personal, it's a personal responsibility as a professional. So if you recognize, boy, I realize everybody is talking about this gamification thing, and I'm in HR how many years now and I don't know anything about gamification. You probably need to spend some time and read about it. If, boy, everybody in HR is talking about the gig economy and I don't know what the gig economy is, or the Great Resignation and I don't know anything about the Great Resignation, and all of these are things that are examples of topics that you need to familiarize yourself with. How do you do that outside of reading, outside of doing your research? Another important way is, and I mean, if I didn't plug this, being a part of a professional association, a professional society, it's important, not just being a part of one, probably being a part of multiple,
right,
so that you can have different perspectives within your discipline and also within your industry.
Makes sense. So my last question, Rochelle, this has been an excellent interview.
Thank you.
Well, the last question is, are there any final words, final thoughts, tips that you'd want to leave with the audience? Because remember, we're speaking to Caribbean HR professionals, CEOs, leaders who are looking to upskill their employees and develop a learning and development culture. So what tips or final words would you leave with them?
The main one is for your next budget. So if you're doing your budgeting now, you're doing your manpower plan and you're putting those things together, ensure that you have adequate budget for team building. Make sure you build something in there for corporate team building, and you redesign your induction program, your onboarding, your orientation program to include some serious induction. Give every one of your employees an onboarding buddy, somebody who embodies what you want in your organization, or what the ideal employee looks like.
Right.
And my third bit of advice, and we probably spoke about it a lot, is the gamification. How can you infuse gamification into your organization as a incentive and a tool to encourage more continuous learning? Think about it carefully. If you want help in how to do that, reach out to me. But there are a lot of tools and platforms that are online. And earlier I mentioned Lego Serious Play. It is now open source. You can try to become a trainer. And unlike a lot of these other programs, when you are a facilitator for Lego Serious Play, and this is really a plug for them, I don't know why I plug in it, but I just like it. You don't have to worry about having to renew your certification or anything like that. You learn how to do it, and you can utilize it within your organization. There are a number of other free platforms that you can use, and Excel and Word are also very easy tools. But there are many ideas that you can draw on, and infusing fun in the organization is going to be key. That should be the key takeaway.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Rochelle. How can people reach you?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well. On Instagram, it's Ellie_SEMAJ.
Ellie as in ELLIE?
No, ELLE.
Okay.
_Semaj. So that's James spelled back way.
Oh.
Yes. James
Gotcha.
in the reverse. Semaj. So it's at Ellie_Semaj on Instagram.
Excellent. Thank you so much again, Rochelle. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.